Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for setting your time aside to join me and one of my dear friends today for just one thing. I'm going to bring her in just a few moments. I'm going to give you all just a second to come in. But I just wanted to share really quickly. You know what? I don't want to sit here by myself. Let me just bring her in now while I do this intro. Ayesha, how you doing?
Hey, Lady Green, how are you?
I'm good. By the way, you could just call me Concetta today. That's fine.
Okay, Concetta.
I'm in official capacity today.
So good to see you.
You too. I wanted to give just a little background before we jump in or as we jump in. So for a long time, I have found myself saying or heard myself saying, I don't really get into politics, when I have conversations with people. And that has been fine, I thought. And now we have hit sort of this pressure point in our country where I'm realizing that was a privilege and a luxury that I thought I had. But it was also very damaging, right? And a lot of my friends feel the same way. So here's the thing. We've spent all this time saying, I'm not political. And we've kind of disenfranchised ourselves or removed ourselves from the process or the responsibility of not just saying, I voted and getting a sticker. And so I think as we are now in a space of even more racial awareness, where our white brothers and sisters are now feeling this responsibility to educate themselves on African-American history and the experience, African-Americans now have a renewed responsibility to not just vote, but to get engaged in the political process and move things to make change. So as a disclaimer, this is really scary. And I feel like I'm the perfect person to do this because I'm scared out of my mind. Politics make me very nervous.
Me too.
Okay. They make me so nervous. But watching your example and other women like you, I've just been impressed by your courage to step out. So thank you again for coming today. I'm really hoping just to educate people as much as possible on just one thing they can come away with. We're going to give a couple of things, but one thing might not connect to you, but something else will. So listen up, you guys. You can ask your questions in the comments. We'll be posting things at different times. But Ayesha, can you just tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. And again, thank you so much, Concetta, for having me here. And hello to everybody out in the audience. So my name is Ayesha Wilson. I am a kid from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I grew up in public housing. My K to 12 education has been here in Cambridge, but I grew up in the Housing Authority, Cambridge Housing Authority in Jefferson Park. And throughout that time, we never really discussed much around voting. We never engaged much. And, the voting poll was right in our community center, right in our neighborhood. So we would see the voters and maybe my mom would go out and do her thing. But I never actually went with my mom to vote. That wasn't a thing that we did in our household. And so then after I graduated, started doing my own living life and going to school. I'm a social worker. I have my bachelor's and master's in social work from Wheelock College. And, I continue to work with young people in the community here in Cambridge and doing clinical work, maybe in the greater Boston area. I then was like, all right, I love working with kids and love, to engage them and love to support them on a clinical level, making sure that they're taking care of themselves on the mental health aspect of it all. And I want to say just recently in 2017, so just a couple of years ago, I actually went out and was campaigning for someone else, for a dear friend of mine who was transitioning from school committee in Cambridge and then was looking to go into to become a city councilor in Cambridge. So while I was door knocking for him, this was my very first time knocking on doors, advocating for someone else.
Hold on, like real people's doors? Like
real people's doors. Like I get a sheet, I'm walking with a couple people. We know the name of the people in the household who are registered voters, and we now have to sell the person that we are out there canvassing for. It's called canvassing. You're out there canvassing and door knocking and all that stuff. And my first door that I went to, it was in North Cambridge area. And I was completely like, I felt like maybe I was like peeing my pants because I was just so nervous. I didn't know if the person, one, was going to open the door, two, open it and shut it right on my face, or, you know, just say, hey, hand me the pamphlet and keep it moving. And I want to say that first conversation was really well embraced. Like that, the gentleman who opened the door, white man, he wanted to talk. And I think I stayed at that door for like 10, 15 minutes. And the person who I was door knocking with, a veteran in the field, just want to shout him out, Mo Barboza, super dope guy. He was like, yes. He was like, okay, the next door, you cannot, we only have like 2 hours out here. You're next to, you have like 2 minutes per door, if that. And so I was like, okay, let me get my pitch down. And by the end of the day, you know, over the course of the 2 hours, I think we knocked on about 70, 80 doors. And I was like, I got this. But I was also saying to myself, I could be saying this about me. You know, Richard Harding is the one who I was out there door knocking for, a kid from Cambridge, grew up in the projects, all that good stuff. And I'm like, I could be talking about me. And I started to get fascinated and started to think about what would it look like if I ran for school committee? What would be that process? So in addition to now being a school committee member, I also am the secretary for the NAACP Cambridge branch. I am a board of trustees for the YWCA here in Cambridge. And I also have a full-time job. So I work as an after-school senior teacher counselor for the workforce program that's part of Cambridge Housing Authority. So I work with our residents who are in grades 8 through 12 and supporting them on transitioning through life skills and thinking about post-secondary opportunities.
Wow.
So it's a lot. Yes. Yes.
So, okay. I know there's also another story because we've talked before, right? And I wanted to know how you got in. Like, how did you actually run? Like, how did you kind of get the momentum to say, I think I'm going to start here and this is how?
Yes. So on the day of election day for in 2017, I was out canvassing. I was at a school and I was holding the sign for Richard Harding. And I'm like, Richard Harding, vote number 1, all that good stuff. And former city councilor and state rep Alice Wolf was out there. And she came up to me and said, why aren't you running? And I said, you know, I've been thinking about it. And she said, well, then you need to join Emerge. And I said, what is Emerge? And she said, Emerge is a program that works with women who are Democrat women who want to run for office. And so you learn the A through Z on how to run a campaign.
Really?
Yes, it's an amazing program. It's a 6-month program. They do have some boot camps that they do that might be like weekend intensive kind of things, but the real process is you want to do the 6 month. It's 1 weekend a month for 6 months, and we traveled across the state. It was 27 women in our cohort, so I joined it in 2019.
Yeah.
27 women in my cohort from all over the state of Massachusetts. And we learned what the process is to canvass. What does it mean to have your pitch? What are the things that you're voting, that you're running on? What are your priorities? What do you hope to change when you get into office? And we really have a sisterhood, that cohort. And some of the, I have some amazing sisters who got into office and some who didn't, who will run again. I know they will. But Julia Mejia, who is this Boston City Councilor, she was part of my cohort. That's my girl.
I love her.
Love her. And what's fascinating about Julia is that she won her campaign for Boston City Council at large by 1 vote. So when we talk about every vote matters and every vote counts, like literally every vote matters and counts. And that was through a recount. They had to do a recount just because her and the contender that she was with, the other candidate, that's how close they were. But Samantha Perlin from Marlborough, she's a city councilor. She's the youngest city councilor in the state of Massachusetts. I think in the country. She's just turned 25, I think yesterday, but she is
Wow.
the youngest city councilor. There's Tamika over in Newton, who's a school committee member. I mean, our cohort was just, we are super deep, and we are just so blessed to have built our sisterhood and really be in community the way we are. Yeah.
So do you feel like, because I feel like a lot of the process too, before we move on, the fear surrounding the process is, I don't know enough. Maybe I'm not smart enough. I wasn't like a poli-sci major at college. Maybe I didn't even go to college. Like, what qualifies me to even think about running?
Wanting to make change. You want to make change in your community? You run for office, or you figure out how to get involved to support someone who's running for office. That's really what it's about. And I think that's where the passion really starts, is especially once you join a campaign, you're out there in the fight with somebody, you start to get motivated. Not only are you motivated and passionate about what their priorities are and how they're going to help change society, but then you start thinking more and more about what are the small things that you could do from your end. And if you don't want to be like the face in front of, and you want to do more of the behind the scenes, there are so many things that you can do to be civically engaged behind the scenes. And that's what I think is really powerful.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the census.
Yes.
Now, I know that the 2020 census is happening now.
Right now.
And we're encouraging people to fill it out. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important?
Yes. So the 2020 census, the census comes out every 10 years, right? So every 10 years, when you fill out the census, that means that you are being counted. And by being counted, you actually are allowing the federal government to look at who is in certain districts and communities and how they will allocate funds and resources for that community. And those funds and resources are dollars, right? And so those dollars could equal the fire departments, police departments, the hospitals, the public schools that you have in your community, the public health centers, the clinics that you have, how they look at the roads and infrastructure in your community and what you need, even down to parks, could be based off of the census, because it's really about how do we make sure that needs are being met within communities. Like you have their Head Start, the school lunch program, like those things are really what matters when it comes to being counted. So when you do not fill out the census, you ultimately are not counted, which means that can reduce the amount of money that comes to a certain district.
Wow. So it sounds almost like voting, right?
Yes. But you're voting on yourself, right? You're voting on you and your family and saying, we need to be counted so that we make sure our community has more of what we need for our community to thrive, right?
And so by not filling it out, it's almost like saying, don't fund my community. We don't need the money. We don't need to go to the parks. We're not going to need Medicare, Medicaid, Head Start. We don't need any services. So
count me out. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And so right now, while we're in this pandemic, I remember when I was in high school in 2000, when I was a senior in high school, I got a part-time job as a census. I forgot what they call it. I went to doors. And so the people who did not already fill it out, I went to their doors to confirm their information. Right. And so right now, because of the pandemic, nobody can do the door to door, but we are still encouraging and actively wanting to make sure that people are counted and are still doing that piece, that careful piece of it. And I know that out in Chelsea, they're really active in how they are and really clever and being innovative in how they are making sure that people are filling out the census.
How so? Do you know?
Yeah. So, when they have people might be at the lines for, say it's a pantry line or something like that. Or I forget, there was another, I just saw this the other day, but if it was like a pantry line, they have people who are out there, census takers that are actually collecting the information from people right on the spot. If you speak Spanish, Haitian Creole, any language, the people out there to collect that information, which is really, that's being progressive, right? Because we have to meet people where they are, and where they are is in the community, whether they're going to the grocery stores or whatever. We know we're in a pandemic, and yes, people are at home, but it's kind of nervous to have people come up to your door and then ask you a ton of questions. So if you're in a pantry line, or if you're in the line at the supermarket, you know, waiting to, because now it's the 6 feet of separation. They want everybody, you know, there's lines for days. Those are the great places to find people.
Yes. So hearing you say that, it makes me think, so I love genealogy. I love to study genealogy. And anybody who does that knows one of the biggest places you can get information is looking at old census records. And in most cases, the information is fairly accurate, because in the past they would walk up to doors, just like you said, and take information. But in some cases, as they took information down, so all of it would not be accurate. Sometimes they would write things down by pronunciation. They'd make assumptions. People weren't home. They, you know, do certain things. So I would just encourage anybody who's watching, please fill out the census to make sure that your family's information is recorded accurately.
Absolutely.
That you are represented well, because it does make a difference. And we want to make sure whatever funding you need, you get. I think I just saw a report from my representative, because I follow her online. It's Catherine Clark, who represents something 5, District 5. See, I told y'all I'm the one to do this, because I don't know. I think I'm in like District 5.
Wow,
like,
she's my rep too.
Is she? Okay.
In Cambridge, yes. Okay, Catherine Clark, go ahead, girl.
I mean, if I got the wrong district, I might be following her because my church falls into her district, right? But in that district, 68% of people have completed the census, which is still not enough, right? We need funding for 100%. But if we only get funding for 68%, how does that touch our families, especially those who might be lower income? You know, you get less access to resources, and so do your children.
Yes.
The next, how long is it? 10 years?
Yes.
10 years.
Right. That could be, your child can go from being a young child to then being an adult, right? A teenager to being a grown person. Yes. So yeah, it's critically important that those resources, that you're filling it out, that you go to my2020census.gov. Like, go right now. Like, I'm charging everybody after this. So actually stay tuned to this. And then after this, go to my2020census.gov. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about voting.
Yes.
All right. And the importance of voting. You have a lot of connections to that, being involved with the NAACP. So talk to us about the importance of voting and why it means so much, not just to get that sticker.
Yeah, I mean, the sticker's pretty, but it's not enough, right? It doesn't, yes, it says that you went in and you did your thing, but you know, we understand that as a community, the getting out to vote is really important for the Black community. And so I really just want to share, like, there's a film, a documentary called Suppressed, the right to vote. And if you all go on to that, it's a 37-minute documentary that really highlights what happened in Georgia just a few years ago. And so really thinking about how the government there was willing to shut down polling stations because they did not want to fund them. But the real reason was because they know more and more of the Democrats was going. There was a huge, political campaign with Stacey Abrams and I forget who the candidate was, but the point of the matter is that they made it difficult for Black people and for Democrats to actually vote. They made it so that your polling station could have been over 4 miles from where you actually lived. And knowing that not everybody has accessibility to cars and access to, so how are they going to make that happen? And so people in that community and throughout Georgia, areas of Georgia, were actually protesting and speaking up, advocating is what they were doing. They were advocating for their right to vote. Yes. And when they were doing their registrations and filling it out, they would actually get a letter in the mail that says you are not eligible. And a woman, there's a white woman in there that actually says, well, how am I not eligible? My license says I'm eligible.
Right.
I have a home here
Right.
and I pay property taxes. So how am I not eligible to vote? How would you take my right to vote away from me? And it's like, you know, as we look at how America is set up, and when we think about white supremacy and the culture in which we are in, we know that Democrats and those who are the Black community that's really trying to fight for what is right, they don't want to see that. They don't want to see us win. They don't want to see us on an equal playing field where we're able to, have equal access and resources. So through the NAACP, we've done quite a few efforts in making sure that people are voting. We have teamed up with the ACLU a couple of, I want to say, actually, it was earlier this year in February, and actually co-hosted the film, The Suppression, Suppress the Fight to Vote. And we talked in the community. There was voter registration. This was right before Super Tuesday. So there were several people who got registered to vote in just that short period of time. And again, we just talked about, as a community, not just Cambridge, but it was Somerville, a lot of people that came out, how you need to now take this and talk to 10 friends and make sure that they are registered to vote and make sure that they understand the importance of voting. Our Super Tuesday was really important. We had Senator Warren, Bernie Sanders, oh my God, why am I blanking on people? But, the people who were there, who were the candidates. And I mean, Kamala Harris, there were so many candidates that were there, and we wanted to make sure who was going to be the right candidate for us. Right. And it was really hard because Senator Warren, she was out there fighting, and she had a lot of champions on her team to make sure to really help and support her in hopefully getting that vote. And, unfortunately, she didn't win Massachusetts, but she won many other states that she probably was really low and wouldn't have won. But because there are people out there that understand the right to freedom, the right to success, the thinking about your political voice and how that matters, and how to really move and shake in the right way. And knowing that right now in this critical time, we need change. And that change truly, truly matters, and that everybody needs to get out and vote. So she had a great A team. I mean, she had the great Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who's my shero, on her team, and really helping and hooking her up and going state to state with her. I mean, the everything is endless when it comes down to politics and really trying to win, right? It sucks that it's a money business. You need money in order to do it. And, the Senator Kamala Harris, she actually had to drop out because funding, she couldn't continue to keep up with it. And so when you think about this, it's yes, candidates need money, right? But as a local official, as a local candidate, I'm a local policymaker, excuse me. I know that it takes money to do this work, and I was struggling to make money. But I struggled for many reasons. I struggled because I'm also a municipal employee. So as a municipal employee, it is actually against the law for me to fundraise and say, hey, y'all, donate to my campaign or come to my fundraiser. And so how can I actually raise money when I can't actually raise money? Well, I have to tap into my community. Who loves me? Who's willing to join my team? And they have to be the movers and shakers and say, donate, donate, donate. Right?
So you couldn't say that. Other people had to speak for you?
Yes. Oh my God. Difficult. That was probably the hardest part, because I had a targeted goal of reaching 18 to 20,000 was my target. And I mean, we got to 17. I'm proud of myself, on so many levels. But I'm really proud of my team, because it was really for them as to why I was able to raise as much money as I did. Whether it's a house party, I mean, this is how you actually support your candidates. You throw a house party. You throw a house party for them. You know your neighbors best. Your candidate may not know all of your neighbors. So you host a house party and you say, hey, I'm going to invite 20, 50, call everybody in your community to come to your house. Everybody may not show up, and that's okay. And you also say, if you cannot show up, hey, I need you to donate, right?
Yeah.
So, and you know, you have your cheese and crackers and your waters and your pretty drinks or whatever, and you hear from that candidate on what are the issues that are priorities for them, but that candidate also needs to listen to you as the constituent and hear what are your concerns, right? Because my concerns are my concerns, right? They may not be yours, and I need to hear from you because you're the one that's voting for me, and that's what's important. Phone banking we have on here, right? And so phone banking, yeah.
Hold on. One thing though. So you said we can hold house parties. Now I have to say, that's one thing I didn't see until we moved to the suburbs, where the suburban white moms have these, you know, wine and cheese and cracker parties, and they're like, "Hey, just come by. We're gonna have so and so." And I remember seeing that for the first time, thinking, like, "What? Like in your house?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think for a lot of African Americans, you know, our culture is a little bit different when it comes to showing our house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Number one, we're very protective. We're very guarded about our people, who's there, who's coming in. We don't want everybody seeing our stuff. I just want to acknowledge that for our culture, it's a little bit different. We're very protective over our space. But I think I just want to encourage people, anybody who's watching, if that's an issue for you culturally, if maybe you are a little bit more shy, you can still host a house party on Zoom. Like you can learn how to have a Zoom meeting. You could do Google Chats, or was it Google Meetups, right? You could schedule it with that person's campaign manager or whoever does their bookings and say, we just want the people in our building, or I want the people on the floor in my floor in my apartment building to get the chance just to hear you talk and like ask you questions.
Yes, that's it. You know, we are in this virtual world where virtual meetups and virtual fundraisers are happening.
Yes.
I support a candidate right now who's running for state rep in Cambridge. I want to shout her out, Jen Fries. She's running for, it's part of North Cambridge, but it's Belmont and Arlington. And she, as a first-time candidate, I do virtual phone banking with her. And so what we do is we join into a Zoom. We sometimes play bingo, like whoever can get to, you know, if you made your 50th call, you might touch on a bingo screen and touch on something. If you got somebody, you know, called a home and nobody answered, or called and got a wrong number, like there's different bingo screens so you can tap on it, and we just make it friendly. You're still on your phone, you're still making your own phone calls, but it's a little engaging and interactive with other people. So, I mean, we've had up to 4 or 5 people on a Zoom virtual phone banking party, and I think we got over 250 calls in about less than 2 hours. It was.
And question, what do you say on these calls? Because I have been asked, I've been asked to join, you know, come help us do phone banking. I'm like, I'm not knocking on the door. I'm not calling strangers because I don't want to get shut down. I don't like rejection. Like, what do you say? I'm like, oh, what's happening on those calls?
No, and rejection is real, because for the first, I mean, especially when you're talking about a first-time candidate, nobody knows this person, right? So you are the first time introducing this person to the other person on the line, to the constituent. And so you go and say, hi, my name is Ayesha Wilson, and I am actually a Cambridge School Committee member, but I'm here volunteering for Jen Fries, who's running for state rep in your neighborhood. And they'd be like, oh, okay. I say, you know, do you have a moment so I could just tell you about Jen and what she's running on? Yeah, sure. Okay. And then you talk about her priorities and you talk about why she's in this fight. And, you know, you never want to shame the other candidate that she's running against. You really want to talk about why she stands out and why it's important and why you might want to consider her. Okay. What are the things that she's fighting for? What are the things what's the fresh lens that she's going to bring to the table right now? That's what's really important. And then it's like, okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. And then you say, so could we count on you to vote for her in the primaries, which is September 1st? And they say, well, I don't really know. Do you have any pamphlet and information that you could send? Yeah, sure. So you check a box in the virtual screen that says send information, or unsure about voting right now, maybe undecided or whatever. And then there's another question. If they say, yes, I can vote for her, the other question is, would you be willing to volunteer? What does volunteering look like? Well, it looks like phone banking, just like what I'm doing right now. Or would you be willing to host a virtual party for her? Would you be willing to, on September 1st, stand outside and hold a sign for her and hand out things to people going into vote, right? And then they'll say yes or no or maybe, and then you just check that box and thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and on to the next caller. It's kind of like, it's almost like you're telemarketing, honestly, but you're doing it for people that you really care about and you want to win.
It sounds a little bit like that. And I think there was something else that you put on your page too. Being a part of the fundraising committee, people can display a sign at their house.
Yes, a yard sign. So yard signs are pretty. They are also very expensive.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, a lot of people will say, hey, yard signs are great, but don't waste a lot of your money on that. But it does show the community who, you know, you may actually host the yard sign and not actually vote for a person. Do you believe people would do that?
Does that really happen?
That really be happening.
Do they just say I'll do it because somebody
like I'm your friend or whatever? I don't know. Sometimes people be like that. That's shady. Don't do it to me though. Nobody. But you know, having the signs is for visibility for people in the community, doors that you may not get on, especially when people are on nice corners, right? Like have nice corner lots or really on a main street. It's really beautiful to be able to see those yard signs. So you can host a yard sign, you could host a party, you could stand out at the polls, you could phone bank,
stuff envelopes. Do they still do that?
Yes. I mean, it's also expensive to do those things, but it is a very nice, touching way to get in contact with people. Or you do a bunch of emails and you can have an email listserv that you can send emails to people. But sometimes people like that touch. They like the handwritten note or something like that. So especially after any party that a person has hosted for you or money that has been donated to you, you always want to do a handwritten thank you note. And it doesn't have to be super elaborative. I mean, you really just say, thank you so much for your donation. This is really, this will allow me to do more within our campaign, you know, pay for, you know, donuts for our volunteers or, you know, pay for more t-shirts, more literature. Literature is what you have to go on the doors to really give to people. And that costs money. The amount of literature that we go through, it's insane. The bulk of the money goes to that for sure.
So what do you recommend? So I'm thinking about like the average person that I might know in the city. They might not have a whole lot of discretionary income, but we all have things, you know, fancies that we indulge ourselves in, right? That we treat ourselves with. So let's say, you know, how much money should we be giving? Should I be giving on a weekly basis? Like, should I give up coffee for a week or a couple days and send a few dollars? Or should I say, oh my God, I got an extra 20? Yeah, does it have to be big is my question.
Not at all. Every single dollar counts, honestly. Okay. You know, one of my grandmother's sister who lives in Hyde Park, I love her, Auntie Carmen, hi. She was nervous about donating to me just because she knows that she doesn't have, you know, but she donated like $5. And then I was like, well, Auntie, do you think you could do $5 a month? And she was like, all right, Ayesha, I think I could do that, you know? And so she just set it up and did it that way. And I mean, it's the small things that really count. It's her showing me that she cares and that she wants to see me win. Of course, she doesn't have it. She's on a fixed income, all that kind of stuff. And we have to respect that of the people in our community. And I think that's the part more than anything else that pained me. And I remember in the Emerge, Jen and I actually sat down. She was teamed up with me and we were doing cold calls. So I went through a list of people and I put my mom on the list for one of the people that she would call. And so this is probably gonna make me emotional, but she called my mom and I said, you know, ask my mom for like $20, $30, you know? And because again, on a fixed income, she don't have it like that. And so she makes the call. She wants to do it. My mother, what Jen said to me is it sounded like my mother was going through her purse right then and there to see how much money she had. And knowing my mom, she don't have much. So for her to really scramble and then say she had $40 that she could donate to my campaign was touching. And I just sat there and I sobbed, right? Because she knows, I know how much she cares about me. I know how much she wants me to win and everything. And knowing that she wouldn't be able to give a lot in terms of money, what she did give was time. And so on election day, my mother stood out at the poll. She brought her little chair that had a little umbrella. It was a little sprinkly on that day, November 5th. And she sat there literally from 8 a.m. to about 7 p.m., 8 p.m., I think, when the polls closed. I came by, we did a little lunch break. We went to Legos, her favorite spot, got her some Legos.
That's one of mine.
Yeah. And but appreciative, and my mother was able, because we grew up in North Cambridge, for her to stand at the polls in North Cambridge was a blessing. It was our world coming full circle, honestly.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's really you really have to think about your community and understanding you're not going to get the bulk of the money, especially as a little poor girl who grew up in the projects, single mother. My mother is an immigrant, came to this country at 11 years old. Yes. At the end of the day, she don't have it. And most of my family, they don't have it. So I needed the community to have my back, and the community did.
I love that. I'm thinking about how people choose the people that they vote for. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that can also be a challenge, because you get these mailers, right? Mm-hmm. They junk up your mailbox.
Yep. Sorry, y'all.
Get these big awkward things, like, oh my God, between this and the Val packs, like, I can't take it. But you get these things in the mail, and it's hard to know who to throw your support behind. And I think I also want to add this too, for like people of faith. I feel like there's also this weird caveat, and like there's been this weird I'm just going to call it propaganda. We'll call it, because it is what it is, where we've been conditioned to think that the candidates we elect to office have to subscribe to our personal belief system in all things. They have to look like us. They have to be just like us. They have to believe just like us. When in fact, those are not even the qualities that maybe you need to get things done, right, in legislation. Right. It might be nice to have a Christian. It might be nice to have a Muslim. It might be nice to have, someone who's running and to say, I want them to run. But like, they could be a complete idiot when it comes to building relationships, right? Or picking what bills to support, or what groups to uplift. So what kind of encouragement can you give to just people in general about how should we be picking people? I mean, when we're so inundated with information, like, what should we do?
Well, I mean, yes, take those flyers, and there's usually a website on there. And on that website, there'll probably be some events that might be happening, or a phone number of somebody that you can call and just talk to that person and see if you're able to either build a connection with them, really learn. And so sometimes, that pamphlet that you receive may say all the good stuff. It's not going to say crap, right? It's going to say something good. But how do you know that it's really good and that person is genuine? Well, you need to meet them, right? And so when you meet them, whether it's like, hey, please come to my door, I'd like to meet you, or when is your next event that's maybe public, that I can come to, if it's at a coffee shop, or, people do coffee hours, people do all sorts of great meetups to get into the community and get the community to get to know them. And so when you do that, you take advantage of the opportunity to get to know that person and see if you vibe with them and see if you actually like what they're saying. And if you feel that they're genuine, and you feel like that's a candidate that you want to get behind and support, I encourage you, please, to do so.
So we shouldn't be afraid of, again, we shouldn't be afraid of talking to these people.
No.
They may be all fancy.
We're humans. We're people just like you. I'm nervous as well. I think my first running for office for the very first time, I was nervous on so many levels. Everything made me nervous. Everything. Even talking to my mentors and them telling me how many doors I did not knock on. So how many doors I better knock on in the next week. Those were tough conversations, and I had to just take it absorb it, and also understand like people are going to be nervous to want to help and nervous to want to talk to me. But people who care about their community, they're going to want to know who's actually going to represent their community. And so whatever level that is, city council, school committee, they want to know how best you're going to support. And one thing I will just add is because I'm running for school committee, right? I'm a school committee member. A lot of people in the community may not still have kids in our school system, in our school district. So why do they care? Why would they want to vote for school committee? And why should they vote for me? Well, I would be like, so those young students, scholars is what I like to call them, they're going to become adults and they're going to become your neighbors. So would you like them to be a well-educated student, neighbor, or what would you like here?
Right?
Exactly. So that's why your vote matters, and that's why it counts. And if you're a homeowner, the real interesting thing is that property tax is what goes to the school committee budget.
Okay.
So your property tax is what pays for that. So again, you are investing already in the schools and in our school district, like in the school system. And so again, you have a voice on who should be at the table helping to make policies and make change that we know we need for our community to thrive.
So even home ownership is an investment in the community. Like not even just like, I'm buying a house here, I'm going to make it beautiful, but like it's affecting the funding for different services again.
Yes. So your city, your city office, your city manager or what have you, they control that. So your property tax is going to a bunch of different things that help to improve the community on many levels.
Yes.
And so whether it's a fraction of that dollar, it may not be the whole, $4,000 for the year, but there's a fraction of that that's going to school committee. We in Cambridge are so wealthy. We just passed a budget that's $213 million for our school committee budget. And we do have just under 7,200 students in our district.
Wow.
So it's about $30,000 per child is what our district is paying for our beautiful buildings, for all of our wonderful educators, all of our administrators. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal in Cambridge. But the part that I say even now as a policymaker is, we spend a lot of money, but we're still failing our Black and brown and our most disadvantaged kids and marginalized kids. And that's a problem to me. And so I'm fighting for that fight to make sure that all of our kids have equity and access, and that all of our kids are able to thrive and be successful, whatever success looks like for them in our community, that we're not going to shortchange them just because of the color of their skin, their lack of, their learning level learning ability is not up to par, whatever up to par is. No, we better find all the resources to make sure that that child can be successful, period.
Yes. My gosh. All these connections, like as you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, everything is like so connected. So this makes me think too of people who live in apartment buildings, right? Now, in places in town, if you live in an apartment, you think, well, I don't have a house, I'm not paying towards that. But the person who owns that apartment building, they're paying taxes. So essentially it's a pass-through. We're all paying taxes. We're all paying for these things, right?
Yes.
So it behooves us to get involved in the process about where this money is going and like who's making decisions about what's happening with our kids and who's holding them accountable. Now, Ayesha, I got to tell you, out here in the town that I live in, I've never seen parents so engaged. Like never, ever. Something goes wrong, they're like, boom. Here's an email template. We're going to send this out. We're going to send this to every single person on the school committee board. We're going to send it to the superintendent. And we're going to say, we're going to outline the issues. Here's what we're seeing. Here's what we want to see. Right? And we're going to sit down and have meetings with these people. When we can, we're going to figure it out. But we're going to have meetings with people face to face. I feel like as an African American, sometimes we are too conditioned to letting other people run the process because we're so busy with life. So we're trying to survive. We single parent homes. We've got disabilities. We've got all these challenges, right? Former felons, whatever
Yes.
the thing might be. So we say, well, maybe my voice is not that important, but I'm learning it's important to get the email addresses of these people and hold them accountable. Because like you said, they're people.
Yes. Yes. And you are the people who vote in the people who are the policymakers. So
for you.
Yes. So I get those emails every day, and those organized emails, like that's a movement. That's a collective of individuals, families, parents who are like, there is some inequities happening around here for my child. And you know what? It's everybody's child. We need to organize and we need to send out this email, let them know that they need to get it together.
Yeah.
Or guess what happens next election season? Like that's really how it goes down. So it's holding us accountable to say we have work to do. Yeah. And when we see dozens of emails talking about the same stuff, I'm going to forward that to the superintendent, like where we at on this issue? And how do we address this?
Right?
Yes. And that you need to bring this up in our next meeting. You need to address XYZ. I mean, remote learning right now was probably nobody has gone through this process ever. So there's no blueprint to how to go through remote learning. Mm-hmm. However, what we dealt with right now was a lot of resistance, but a lot of just hope, right? I mean, a lot of people were struggling with what are we doing? What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How do we fix it? And these things are happening every single day. We're taking the guidelines from DESE, which is the Department of Education and Secondary, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, to be like, what are the guidelines? How do we implement that in this remote learning world? What do we need to do? How do our educators need to be prepared to teach our students?
The school committee is asking those questions?
Well, no. Well, yes. The school committee's asking those questions. The community's asking us those questions. So we have to push on our leadership to say, how are you doing these things? But they're waiting on DESE for the guidelines. And some of those guidelines could be super vague. And so as a district, you need to figure out how do we zoom that in for our community and our district. And it might look different. You have a child on one side of the city. One parent's like, yeah, my child's on Zoom every day for an hour a day. Yep. The other child is like, damn, my child only gets an hour a week. What's wrong with that?
Wow.
And so how do we work through those injustices? And what does that look like? Is that, our teachers are also parents, they're caregivers, right? So maybe their accessibility looks different, but how do we support them as a district through that? How do we get all that data to know what the availability of our teachers are? And then how do we think about how much screen time a young person should have versus the work that they're able to do on their own, and then come back and share it to their peers and the teacher. So it's it was very complex, but we working through it. Trust me. Just like every other district across the nation, we're working through it, but it has been really, really hard. And those emails come, and trust me, those emails make a difference, right? When parents are talking and they organize, movement has to happen because they're not going to sit back and allow it not to.
So it's not enough to just text your girlfriend, right? If something's going on at the school or the way things are being handled, you don't like it. It's not enough to just vent on social media that things are so wrong, right? We should be engaging with the people who we've put in place to serve.
Those are the people who make the change. I mean, so really, yes, you need to reach out to those people. You need to reach out to your city councilors, your school committee members, your state legislators, your House representatives. Like those are the people you need to reach out to because those are the policymakers who are going to make change in your communities.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
It's work. But we're all, as a community, this is work, And so as a community, when you want to see change, you got to get on. And it's important. And you never want to you're not too young to start the process or too old to jump in the process. Like we want to make sure our little baby, if you can write, If you can write or you could talk to your, your reps, and you could talk to your school committee people and say what's on your mind. Absolutely.
And don't be afraid of it.
And don't be afraid of it. And a lot of like civic engagement is happening at the school level. So they are learning. Our kids, our babies are learning, which I appreciate. The work that I do with my students over the summer will gear up. They will learn about the history of education. And through that process, they're going to participate in there's a participatory budget thing that they have here in Cambridge. So they're going to do that. And they're going to exercise their civic right and their voice and think about what they can do to improve the community. Yeah.
What's that? What's the participatory budget?
Yeah. So, I said Cambridge is wealthy, right? So Cambridge is wealthy. So Cambridge for the last, God, how many years? It might have been, maybe it's 5-6 years now, but every year, and it started off at maybe 800,000. Now it's up to about $1 million that Cambridge sets aside for the community to say, how should we use this money? And so the community, anybody can just go into the participatory, blah, 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 and say, you know what? I have an idea that we need benches in certain areas that have a solar panel that I could plug my phone in and get charged. Yes. So enough people like your vote and like your idea, they vote on it.
Yes.
And there are benches with access that have, the little slots to put your phone charger in, and you could charge your phone.
Because someone spoke up.
Because someone spoke up. They had an idea. It starts with an idea. You want some change. There's something that you don't have in your community that you want. So you speak up about it, and you get enough people to fight for that same fight or be on your side, and they vote on it. And what they also do at the high school level is they give $10,000 for the high school students, Cambridge and Latin students, to think about how they can best serve their high school community. So, our youth, they're learning, right? And this is happening across the nation at a variety of ways. It's not every every district is giving out $1 million to say, hey, do with it as you please. But there are ways to just advocate for the things that are important and necessary in a community. We have public bathrooms. We have public bathrooms in Harvard Square and Central Square because people advocated for that. There's so many things. The trees, there's more trees because of that. One thing I want to see funded is over in Danny Heath Park. They're supposed to put in a concert kind of place where it'll be like a pit and there'll be steps and stuff and people can put on live shows. I want to see that get funded. So for the last several years, that has been an idea that hasn't gotten enough votes to make happen. So we need those things to happen, right? And, it's whatever idea you have to improve your community, get people to be in community. That's what we want to see. And that's what gets the most votes. It might be to renovate a youth center, right? A youth center, the roof might be on its way out. We need a new roof, we need some renovations in that youth center, new basketball court, tennis court, all that stuff.
We have to speak up.
You got to speak up. It's like closed mouths don't get fed, right? So at the end of the day, you don't speak up, you won't get any of your needs met. And this is not a guarantee, but it's really about you speak up, you put it out there. It's like that saying, from your lips to God's ears, and we'll see what happens.
Yes. I'm trying to think what else. You've done so good, like answer these questions. So I put up down below on the screen. If you are not sure, anyone who's watching, if you're not sure what the election days are, because they're broken up into different times, right? There's like a first section of voting, and then there's like a final section of voting. If you're not sure what the dates are, Google it. You can put in this phrase, 2020 election calendar, and then enter, whatever your city or town is. You're going to see the dates where you can vote. I'd like to encourage anyone who's watching to take a moment after this. You're going to have to open up another tab and Google this phrase, find out when the primaries are. And then what do you call the second thing? It's not primary. Is it
It's the actual election. So the first one is the primary and the second one is the kind of like the main event. It's the general election. Yeah.
The general election. Okay. So find out when these things are, right? put them in your phone, whatever your planner calendar thing is, and set it as an appointment, as something that has to happen, not as an option. And then bring somebody with you, like commit to, tell them, hey, this is the date we're going, so make sure that we got to do a little bit of research because we're going on this day and we're going on that day, like no matter what. And we're going to anticipate there might be some suppression type tactics surrounding what we're doing, right? And so we need to be prepared to persevere through whatever that may be. Go ahead.
Can I just add one thing? So I would just add, again, we're in a COVID crisis, right? And so a lot of polling places, so like if the election was happening in August,
yes,
we don't know what that would look like, right? We're thinking about what the September primaries are going to look like because we know that that's a big deal. Right. A lot of them happen in our schools. So what does that ultimately mean? Can folks actually vote in the schools? Do the students actually need to have a day off? Because who's cleaning those spaces if people are coming in and perhaps may be affected with COVID and we don't know, right? So there's a lot of conversations that are happening right now about, could you do, absentee ballots are a big deal. Can you actually just vote by mail is a big deal. So communities are thinking about these things right now because ultimately they want to make sure that we keep the community safe. Yes. But you also can't restrict individuals from actually going to a voting poll to vote. They're just thinking of alternatives. Do they have to be in a school? Are there other locations where they can be at? How can we make this accommodating and not move it around like what they did in Georgia and make things 4 miles away for people so it's a huge burden and a huge inconvenience? We want to make sure people have access to voting, not be hindered and feel like it's a burden to actually vote. That's not okay.
I heard something the other day, and we have just a few more minutes. I don't want to eat up too much of your time, but I heard that in a lot of places, it's okay to vote early. Like you can vote early if you're concerned that you can't show up for a particular election day. Do you know about that? Or
you travel, yes, or you're traveling. So it would be the absentee ballot because you're going to be absent, so you vote that way. Mm-hmm.
Listen up, working people.
Yeah, so you want to get that in, go to your election commission. You could do it. They have a window of time that you could do it in, or you could actually just mail it in, right?
Is that usually like at a city hall, the election commission?
Usually, it might be. Ours is we have an election commission office that's separate from City Hall, but yes, check with your town, Google your election commission and know exactly where they are located. Call them and see what they're thinking about. You may want to wait maybe until about August because they're still in the planning phase, but by August, you'll get some pamphlet or mailer in the mail that's going to tell you exactly what your voting options are going to look like for sure.
Okay. Very quickly, I know, so we have some people who are watching and they have put different things in the comments. This is a whole new setup for me, so I can't even see the comments right now. We're going to have to go back after this and we'll respond accordingly. And Ayesha, if you don't mind, after we end, just kind of looking through if there's anything you want to respond to personally, please feel free.
Absolutely.
But in our last 2 minutes or so, what do you want to leave people with? I know we said we want to make sure they take action, that they find something to do, that they engage their kids, but what do you want to leave people with today as far as getting involved in this whole political process after not being political?
Absolutely. I really want to urge people to align themselves with a candidate, figure out who is voting in your community and what issues they are running on and how can you best support them. I think this is time for change. This is time for really thinking about what your issues are. I mean, we are not only just dealing with a global pandemic, this is also a celebration of Juneteenth, right? And how Black people have been suppressed. So who is really thinking about equity and access for Black people in the Black community? You want to align yourself with those people. You want to make sure that we are not suppressing and marginalizing more and more communities out here. So yeah, you want to do that. You want to make sure that you sign up to phone bank, volunteer. And when the timing is correct, that you could actually get on the doors and do some door knocking. Host a party for them, a virtual party. Please introduce them to your friends. Just the introduction alone. This doesn't have to be a fundraiser. It's really about the outreach in the community, knowing who your candidates are. That is critical, and that's really important. So yeah, I think it's important. Just get out to vote, do the census. Please align yourself with somebody in your community who's running. This year's election is going to be the state reps. That's the primary, and House, like the senators as well. That's going to be the primaries in September, and then the general election will be the presidential election, and that will also be whoever makes it from the primaries. So please just make sure you vote, make sure you get involved, get engaged, talk to your children about it, talk to your community about it. We really want to see change this year and ongoing. We know that change is coming. We just all need to be a part of this movement and don't fall back, because we ain't got time to fall back. We need to step forward. And you know, again, if there's just one thing you do, just please take on one of those options. And if none of those work, what will work for you, right? And suggest that to your candidate. Whatever will work for you will work for your candidate, because at the end of the day, we need you. You are our constituent. Not only do we need your vote, but we also would like to know who's in your community that you can share us with. So yeah, that's a lot, but I know you could take one of those, you know? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Concetta. I appreciate you so much, sis. I appreciate this opportunity so much.
Thank you. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for saying yes to this day, but thank you for saying yes to this moment. And thank you for saying yes to your community. There's a lot of people, you know, there's keyboard warriors, there's people who sit on the couch and complain, but you actually heard somebody say, you know, hey, well, if you're thinking about making change, here's how you can do it. And you stepped up. So thank you. I appreciate you. I wish you all the best. And I hope you guys have enjoyed our conversation today on Just One Thing. If you have any further questions, follow-up questions, email me. The next time we do this, I'm going to figure it out so I can have the comments rolling in real time.
And I'll jump in the chat and I'll see who's, so I can make some comments for sure. Thank you so much, Concetta. I appreciate you. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.